Hello, hello, whoever you are, wherever you are, welcome back to Nova Body. This session will be a full body, somewhat Pilates session focused on the core, from the core outward. Again, reinforcing this idea that we can never truly segment ourselves. So even as we use these words like core or focus on certain areas, I'd love to expand the image in your brain to always be thinking of your whole body as an essence of one thing. Your eyes being connected to your pelvis being connected to your feet, this fascial connective tissue running through the whole system, and the impulses coming from the brain to the peripheral nervous system, and from the peripheral nervous system to the brain, and this ecosystem. So we're always thinking of ourselves as an ecosystem, and I encourage and reinforce this way of seeing so that we begin or maintain to the embodiment of the whole self throughout, not just when you're working out or moving, but that you think of the landscape of your entire life as embodiment, and it's always all of you. So for the purpose of translating, I do label things because I've learned that that's just how maybe you or some other people connect. But once we're here together, I'd like to keep reinforcing this idea that you're never really segmented. And a minor change in one area affects the entire ecosystem of your structure. So, that being said, today I'm going to get into breathing and core. We're going to move from breathing and core to incorporating it into different isolated movements, and then integrating into some more robust movements, and from that space explore and play. So follow along. I like to think of these classes as art pieces, so we're painting together. And is there more for me to say? Let me think about this. That should be good. I assume that if you followed along this far, you are ready to go. So, I would really like to use a block. If you don't have a block, always you can just do it without the prop. The reason I want to use the block is because this is a proprioceptive tool, which simply means it's a tool to give feedback into the body's perceptual sensory experience, and it helps to reinforce those things, the connection. And the idea is that our motor control is directly related to the quality of the motor control is directly related to the quality of our sensory. So sensory precedes motor. If you can't feel it, how can you move it? So let's move it. You're gonna go ahead and take the block and you're gonna lay down. Have it next to you at first, then lay down and take the block underneath your sacrum. Okay, so here we are. The sacrum is just the bony area at the base of the spine. Hold on. At the base of the spine, connecting to the pelvis. You're gonna pause here, and I'll give you a second to find this position. So you have a block where you've stacked some books, or you have a ball, and here you are with the pelvis resting on top of the block. Your feet are in parallel right underneath your pelvis. So they're narrow and underneath your pelvis. You're gonna take your tailbone and let it hang forward. You're gonna let it hang forward and allow the pubic bone to do the same thing. So the pubic bone and the tailbone, you wanna really drop it forward, 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 forward. So that what you feel is that any tightness in the abdominal wall is being allowed to elongate and relax. It's like you're taking your hip bones and you're tipping forward into the hip crease here. While you're in this position, can you allow your brain to connect from your belly button down through your inner groin? So really go through the inner groin in your mind and go through the inner part of the pelvis, go through the inner thighs, and then down through the shins and into the inner heels and inner big toe knuckle. So as you're letting the toes drop down, and as you're allowing that sort of tailbone to drop, you're gonna feel the connection of the big toe knuckle up the inner groin. And I'm just using the belly button as a reference point. And I want you to feel, sensory-wise, can you imagine a pool of water, or like a puddle of water, right at the belly button? And with that sort of like pool of water or liquid, can you feel it beginning to drip down, in like almost getting saturated into the pelvis? Like picture your digestive tract almost like a sponge, and you're just allowing it to become, you're allowing the water to seep into that area. And then as you're doing that, as you're letting that image move through you, you're then going to feel the water go down your inner thighs and down into your inner feet. So as you're connecting this pathway, as you're just in your mind's eye creating this connection between the pelvis and the feet, it's like we're opening up this center line for connection and imagery to feel that midline, the midline connection. Now, as you're doing this, I want you to allow any areas of added tension, like you can think of it like, I want to call it almost like disrupted tension, uneven tension, or areas that are, it's like they're maintaining the bulk of the stress, let's say that. So in this position, where do you feel that happening? Do you feel that in the hip flexors? Do you feel that in the sacrum? When you get into this place of allowance, oftentimes the very sensation of allowance reveals where you in your body maybe are not allowing flow. So I'm going to be quiet, and I just want you to establish this here for a second. The pelvis is in neutral. The thighs are sinking into their sockets. The shins are sinking into the feet. The feet are sinking into the floor. And then, before I cue us deeper, can you open up that puddle from the belly button? Can it go through the solar plexus, through here, and can it go up the esophagus? And as it goes up the esophagus, can it travel into the throat? And from the throat, can it travel up the sinuses, into the brain, and into the front of the forehead? Now, it's traveled up into the front of into the brain, and I want you to also feel that it's traveled into the eyes themselves. And if you're not familiar with doing this type of imagery, I want you to drop into it and just experience what I'm saying. Allow yourself to get out of the thinking mind. Just experience the words I'm offering. So, close your eyes if they're open and begin to feel that water now. We're going to direct it. It's going to drop down through the skull into the brain. Your eyes are softening and the water is kind of running behind your eyes. It's going from behind your eyes and your brain into your sinuses. It's going into the back of the skull, the back of the throat, the nape of the neck, down into the back of the heart, through the esophagus, down the esophagus, into the solar plexus area, and down through the organs, down, moving its way. Let this water, let this liquid really move through you, down into the digestive tract, into the pelvis, into the hip flexors, breathing down into the pelvic floor, the inner thighs, the hamstrings, your knees, the back of your knees, your kneecaps, your shins, your calves, your ankles, your feet. Down into the feet and into the floor. Place your palms open by your sides and let's extend that water now down the throat, out through the collarbones, through the arms, the armpits, your biceps, your triceps, your elbows, your forearms, your wrists, your palms, your fingers, your fingertips. And as this water is moving through you, where do you feel, again, the question is, where does the flow feel restricted? It's the contrast sometimes of being in the state of allowance that allows you to discover where you're not allowing. This is a different feeling than stretching or mobilizing. It's more like inviting deeper presence in your system and letting the image itself be present and illuminate where your body is not present. It's tensing, it's protecting, it's in a memorized pattern. Go ahead and take all of the water and begin to imagine it draining into that point that feels the most out of balance in its tension. Where do you feel the most contraction, the most protection? As you go to that spot in your mind, can you allow the water to absorb into that area? And all you're going to do is inhale, breathe in. Breathe out. Breathing in. Breathing out. Breathing in and feeling that water expand in that one area. And exhaling. Now, breathe in, and as you breathe in, I'd love for you to breathe into the spine. So breathe in and feel the water rush down your spine, opening up the space in the back of the skull, all the way down to the tailbone. Now exhale. And feel the water rush up the spine. Breathe in, feel the water go down the spine. Breathe out. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in, the water rushes down the spine to create space between each vertebrae. Breathing out. Beautiful. From there, float your arms slowly and gently up to the ceiling. And I'd like to give you lots of detail in this session. I promise it will escalate and you will feel it add up. With your arms lifted in this position, feel now the water is going down your palms, down your arms, into your armpits, and sort of settling into the pecs a little bit so that your pec muscles start to soften, and it's like you drop your arms into their sockets more. As they drop into their sockets, you feel the shoulder blades drop into the floor a little bit deeper. And just in this position, I want you to allow this melt into your joints, essentially. You're feeling a plugging inward. In a way, this is the opposite of stretching your nerves. This is a form of slacking your nerves. So the feeling of condensing and dropping inward is it might be kind of tricky to understand at this moment, but it's a form of like, we have soft hands, and it's a form of creating, if the reaching of the fingertips is a stretch of a nerve, then the softening of the fingertips is a slacking of the nerve, and sometimes that's what our bodies actually need. They don't need to be stretched, they need to be slacked. Nerves don't like to be overly stretched. It's irritating to the nerves, and then they don't like it. So waste some time with me here. Feel the softening into your sockets. And as you do this, what's going to happen is your shoulder blades are going to melt into the floor more. And because your shoulder blades are connected to your arm bones, and your arm bones are connected to your collarbones in the front, your collarbones are connected to your sternum. Your sternum is connected to your rib cage. Your rib cage is connected to your spine in the back. And so all you're going to be doing here is slacking the energy inward, softening the bones into themselves, the shoulder blades into the floor, the collarbones, the sternum, the rib cage, the spine. And this in and of itself is going to begin to soften the bracing, the potential bracing in this area. When our bodies are in a state of stress for too long, they brace a lot more. And a lot of that shows up in the rib cage itself, which restricts the rotation in that area. And as the rotation is restricted, what happens is the entire system is affected, because what does the rib cage connect to? The diaphragm. So if the rib cage is stuck and rigid and immobile, then so is the diaphragm in a lot of ways. And then what is the diaphragm connected to? The movement of the organs, the pumping of the lymph, the restoration, the oxygenation. Is that a word? Oxygenation? It is right now. It's if the diaphragm is not really mobilizing, then we're missing a lot of restoring functions that are natural to the system. So we've been doing this for a while now. As you're continuing to do this, you're just letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go. How much more can you let go? And I know you're going to be feeling what I'm talking about. You're going to be feeling more nuance in the rib cage. As you do this, your sternum will start to feel a little bit more pliable, your rib cage, your spine. And as that's happening, you'll feel, I believe, that you will feel more easy breath going on. So let's do that now. Let's keep ourselves in this position. Let's breathe in through the nose. Your throat opens. The water rushes down the spine. The diaphragm opens. The abdominal wall opens in multiple directions. The pelvic floor gets movement. It lowers down. The hip flexors get breath. The breath goes all the way down to the toes. You exhale, and it comes back up the body. Breathing in. Breathing out. Breathing in. From there, from there, you're going to begin to, very slow, very gentle, let the left arm begin to go back. But as you're doing it, you're still slacking the nerves. This is super important for just this specific image we're going to be working with. The right arm is starting to go forward, the left arm is starting to go back. You're sinking the arms into their sockets, and you'll feel the nuance of the way the arm bone moves in relationship to the sternum, the collarbones, the shoulder blades, and the rib cage. Slowly go in the other direction. Now, I want you to get this sense of, as you're doing this, as you're really tuning into the simplicity and the gentleness, what you're going to begin to feel is the relationship all the way down the spine into the pelvis. And the shoulder blades themselves are going to be a little bit more liberated as it's like they're WD-40ing the rib cage, because they slide along the rib cage. And as they're doing this, what else connects to the shoulder blades? Your traps, so the muscles that a lot of people deal with being super tight up top. And so you're with your head being very heavy here and everything kind of being passive and letting go and finding their place in a gentle way. It's allowing for the subtle movements of the muscles and the connective tissue. And as that is happening, I want you to feel like you're lubricating. Like it's another, like if you're used to thinking about your body, if you're used to thinking about movement as strength or stretch, I want to expand your vocabulary and your experiential vocabulary to feel what this lubricating movement feels like. It's letting the body become so relaxed and the nervous system to really sink in that the movement itself is moving things that are so subtle that because you're not in a defensive state. Go ahead and bring both of your arms back through space, slow, and switch. Another thing I'd love to direct your attention to is the fact that when we let all these parts kind of figure themselves out, and we let the traps relax, we let the shoulder blades move naturally, the first rib up top, the first rib lives above the collarbone. And when we kind of glide in this way, I like to think of us as freeing up the motion of the first rib. And when we're tight there, when we're constricted in that area, we're constricting a lot of important functions. Like, first of all, that is one of the first ways that the brain drains down to the heart, as we've talked about. So when that area is constricted and tight, your blood flow you have a constricted blood flow, and that means that nutrients can't get in, and old stagnated cells or any form of stagnation can't get out. So we're thinking about this movement as really subtly, gently slacking the nerves and letting go in and lubricating these gentle interactions. Pause with your palms straight up And let's redirect this movement now. If you need to kind of like wiggle around, go ahead and do that. But I also encourage you to get used to the discomfort of the stillness and kind of like let the melting handle things for you. So gently begin to allow the right thigh to slowly open out to the side. I want this to feel as relaxed as the movements we were just doing up top, and then just gently allow the thigh bone to slide back into the socket. It's very, very small. You're gonna switch, take your time, allowing the thigh to gently open and gently return. Okay, so this gentleness, I hope that if you're still with me, I assume you're kind of getting the experience that is at least intriguing to you. But I hope to share with you the value of this easy mapping, this gentle speed of really, it's especially good for letting go of the protective reflexes in the system. And then also, as you just get comfortable with where the tension is too much, as you just rest inside of that, it begins to open up. So you stop avoiding it, but you also don't force anything. Going back and forth easily. And here's how things are going to kind of pick up. So now, can you picture that line down the spine, from the crown of the head down to the pelvic floor? Down all the way into the big toes. You're going to open the palms and the thighs away from each other. And then glide back into neutral. Go again. Breathing in, feeling the breath go down the spine, into the feet. Exhale. Breathing in. And breathing out. Letting everything kind of melt back into the center point. Now pause and feel the weight of the left inner foot, and just open up the right thigh only and the left arm, but keep slacking everything into the center points. As you do this, watch the left hand with your eyes. Breathing in. Breathing out. Return. And switch. Alternating. and return to both at the same time. And as you do this, I want to talk about how I said that this would be core work. I hope that what you're feeling is that as we're sort of slacking into that belly button point, like all the water is finding its way down into that area. It's like we're almost taking any sort of added tension along the limbs, any sort of compensations, and we're redirecting that tension, and we're kind of like clearing it out into the midline of the body, so that if the limbs are compensating in any way, like the limbs are overly tense, or like I like to think of it like there's two types of tension in my mind. There's like good tension that's balanced tension, and then there's tension that is actually stagnancy. It's not actually like robust tension, and you'll know the difference in your own body. It's a tension where it's like an unresolved, it's stagnant, it's hardened, it's contracted, and it never stopped contracting. That's usually what people mean when they talk negatively about tension. Okay, so now I feel that if you've made it this far, you're gonna be feeling, let's go ahead and breathe again. I trust that as you're slacking everything inward, you're gonna start to feel your core in a different kind of way. Very natural kind of way. Breathing in. And now as you exhale, feel a gentle contraction of the pelvic floor, like you're trying to draw your hip bones towards each other. As you do that, can you gently lift the arches of the feet? The heels rise. The tailbone stays dropped. You breathe in, you drop the heels. Breathe in. And breathe out. Lifting the heels. Exhaling. Breathe in, lower the heels. Breathe out, lift the heels. Gently dropping into the big toe knuckles. And it's very, it's like 50%. It's not all that. Now, alternating, breathing in, breathing out, lift the heel, and feel the relationship to that oblique. Feel the oblique on either side. Now lift both heels up. Hold that there. Breathe in. Breathe out. Find that core connection. And then just float one thigh and feel it slack. Feel it slack, just like the hands slacking into the socket. And then breathe in again. Breathe out. Feel the slacking inward of the thighs into their sockets so that everything's directing into the pelvic floor. And let's just find ourselves here. If your tailbone or your sacrum is going crazy, give yourself a second to go into the flexion there. Draw your knees in. And then find yourself back in that position with the thighs up and the arms up. And all you're gonna do is keep slacking. Keep feeling the thighs sliding into their sockets and
sliding so much into the socket, what will happen is, again, I'm going to keep directing your attention to the interconnectedness of all things. So as the water goes down the inner thighs and any sort of added tension there begins to relax, it'll drop into the inner groin and into the pelvic floor. And then, as we've talked about in other videos, what does that connect to? Psoas. Psoas then connects up into the back of the diaphragm. And so you're feeling this connection from the feet through the inner groin, inner thighs, into the pelvis, into the back of the ribs. And now, instead of trying to stretch your legs away from you, you're getting this feeling of the connection of the whole midline. Palms go up if they're not, and keep working with this gentleness here. All you're going to do is grab hold of the back of the right thigh. You're going to press the thigh into the palms. Slowly and gently. Can you keep the armpits relaxed? Can you find equality in the pelvis? And all you're going to do is keep slacking. So keep thinking of everything dripping in. But as you do that, can you begin to raise the shin bone up? And feel that even though you're dropping the energy into the socket, the hamstring is elongating in two different directions. You're then gonna bend. Keep pressing your thigh into the palms as you extend the shin away from the sitting bone. You're still dropping into the shoulder blades so that as a result, you're not overworking somewhere else. And now you're just going to keep your leg there and you're going to baby bend and straighten the knee. Baby bend and straighten the knee. Now hold and take your foot, turn it in, then turn it out. Turn it in, turn it out. Turn it in, turn it out. Now turn it in and do the same thing. Baby bend and straighten. Feel the redirection of that nerve more to the outside. Now turn the foot out and do the same thing. Now a gentle point and a gentle flex. Keep pressing the hamstring into the palms. Collarbones are wide. Even pelvis. And now just draw a gentle circle with the ankle. Beautiful. Bend that knee. Grab hold of the other thigh. Press your thigh into your palms. Soften into the socket and slowly begin to extend the shin bone. Soft collarbone, soft armpits. Bend a bit and extend, dropping the thigh into the socket. Now, throughout my time teaching, often people do talk about the pace being so deep and focused and slow, you could say. I understand that. What I'd like to say now, pause and start to turn your toes in and then out. What I would like to share about that is that this comes from the experience I've had with having to go this slow to redirect so many compensations after injuries to my nervous system. But as I've done so, turn in and go ahead and bend and straighten. As I've done so, what I've found is that this pace really, really deeply communicates safety and expansion to the body, the nervous system, the brain. And it doesn't go unnoticed. Turn the foot out and repeat. Meaning, the effects are super compounded. Now you want to be able to move at many different speeds. But this speed in particular is very deeply integrative in my experience, and it also challenges wherever you feel, bend and pause. Let your heels kind of hit the glutes a little bit. What this also does is it also reveals a lot of times where you're wanting to be, to not be present. It really shows you, it really reveals where you want to rush and what you want to rush to, and anything that is pulling your attention, keeping you from being present within this experience, it's really allowing that to rise. And that's always worth looking at, because nothing is actually ever other than right here and right now. Float your legs up. Very gentle. Keep the legs slightly bent. Keep the feeling of like letting the thighs sink into their sockets, letting energy drip down into the pelvis. And then when you're ready, if you're ready, you're going to just gently straighten the legs and keep the pelvis hanging into the block. Feel the thighs plugging into the body. If you don't have this level of mobility, that's okay. The point is to actually be passive in the pelvis here and to let the feet kind of drain downward. As we've talked about before, the feet drain to the heart. So giving time for the blood to drip from the feet down the calves, shins, knees, thighs, inner thighs, hamstrings, and into the pelvis, through the joints. Slowly you're going to begin to open your legs, but keep that same intention of like dripping the energy down, and then slowly turn out and bring the legs back to where they started. Go again just like that. It should feel really easy and really gentle as you go in and out, letting go of any extra work that you don't need to be doing. Where are you working too hard? From there, you're going to drop your heels and circle the shins around. I would put this maybe in the genre, we've been doing, I said we were going to do Pilates. This is Pilates. Well, we'll get there, but this is very much somatic work. I'll probably label it that. And now just go one and then the other. Keep connecting the feet to the pelvis, meaning like you're dropping the energy into the body, not trying to reach out. Now go the other way. Feeling the freedom of the thigh in the socket. Legs go up and they just begin to reach open and flex the heels and reach the thighs back up to where they started. You're gonna open the thighs, dropping the tailbone, and reach. Go again. return back to center. Take one leg and slowly reach it down, maintaining the other. Drag the heel in and switch. And circle both legs. And then point. You're gonna kick 1, 2, and circle around. You're gonna go 1, 2, circle around. 1, 2, circle around. Go slow. Every inch of the movement matters. Go back into your bicycle. Bending both knees. Take a second. Soften your feet down. Drop back to neutral. How is your sacrum feeling? Just so you know, mine has been feeling like uncomfortable, you could say, the whole entire time. But I know that it's a good uncomfortable. And I know how to read that because I have experience, and that's what I mean by Nova Body being an experience. You learn to know what is a type of uncomfortable that is good and what is maybe not as good for you. But there's nothing wrong with the discomfort of kind of rearranging things. Beautiful. So from there, go ahead and take your pelvis up and take the block out. You're gonna lower down and just take a second on the ground. Breathe in, breathe out, and feel the body connecting into itself. Beautiful. I am going to start a new video because this has been a long session. See you on the other side.